today we're going to learn about what the Native Americans did in order to be able to eat acorns. Well, first you needed to gather the acorns. So boys, this was your job. You would take really big sticks and you would hit at the branches of the oak tree and knock all of the acorns down to the ground. Yeah. And then the next step, girls, you would take these beautiful baskets and you would gather the acorns from the ground and put them in the baskets. Then they would make baskets that kind of looked like backpacks. But do you notice how the straps went across their foreheads and they would carry those acorns back to wherever their community was? And they would store them in these special kind of granaries, shelters where they would keep them. Why wouldn't they leave them in a bowl just in the middle of where their tribe was staying?
Animals would eat them?
Exactly. What kind of animals do you think would like to eat acorns?
Squirrels?
Yeah, what else? What have we been hearing flying around
birds.
up here? Yeah, what kind of birds in particular? Those ones with the red heads?
Woodpeckers.
Woodpeckers. They like to eat them. What about deer? Do they like to eat acorns? Yeah, they eat a lot of acorns. So they would keep them safe in these granaries. Then the next step is that they would take these stones and they would crush the acorn in order to get the hard shell off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys a bowl, and if you can hold that, then can you pound 3 times? So what we're going to do is we're going to go 1, 2, 3, and see if you can crack that acorn. So 1, 2, 3. Nice. So can you take the hard shell off? And you're going to keep the nut part inside. The nut part's the part that we eat. Okay. By the way, I didn't ask if we've got anybody here that's allergic to nuts. Is there anybody that doesn't eat nuts? Okay, because sometimes, even though these are tree nuts, sometimes people that are allergic to nuts have a reaction, and so we want to make sure that nobody has an allergy. So the next step that you're going to do is you're going to grind them to flour. You're going to get those acorns ground to flour. So how can you do that? You can either keep hammering like this, or you can turn it. So we can go 1, 2, 3, and then the next person in your group can have a turn. 1, 2, 3. So we're looking for it to be kind of like flour, like when you cook or bake with your dad or mom, that you use flour. So 1, 2, 3. I really like how you guys are taking turns. Thank you. That's very kind and very thoughtful. I appreciate that. Thank you. So are we starting to notice? Is it starting to look like flour? Oh, I'm seeing it grinding down. All right, can we keep going a couple of times until we've got it more like flour?
Would they share
Thank
like
you.
this?
So what we would do is we would have 3 or 4 children to
No, I
a
mean
bowl,
the
and
shumash,
one
they
would do 3.
actually, would it be a community thing
Good
or
question.
one person?
So each person had their own bowl, and they were in large rocks that were not able to be moved like this. And my understanding is that the bowls would be handed down within a family. Is that something that you've heard?
That's interesting. Yeah.
Okay. And actually my daughter just came back from the Sequoias and brought me a photograph of a huge rock with maybe 40 different bowls in it, mortars, where you can just imagine the whole community sitting and grinding their acorns together. So what's that starting to look like? Have we got flour there?
There we go.
Because our next step, you're going to see, is we're going to separate the coarse meal from the fine. We're going to put it into a basket. So how are we going to get it into the basket? Anybody remember this? So fruit. And the Chumash name for it is, thank you, imoli. So what they would do is they would pick it up. Now, this is going to be the fractions part of today's station. So if I've got 2 of you, can one of you hold it up? I'm going to hold on to this so it doesn't go rolling down out of the way. Thank you. So can you hold it? I'll hold it up.
Okay.
Can you brush half of it, please, in the basket? Thank you for holding the basket. So half of it. Thank you. And then, nice. Thank you. Then can you hold it up? And you hold the soap root brush, and I'll hold the basket, and you put the other half in. So that's the fractions part of our program. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So what have I got over here now? Do you see? We've got the ground acorns in here. Do you remember I told you the we wish joke about acorns have got a lot of tannic acid? How are we going to get the tannic acid out? What's the next step? Do you see what they're doing? They're pouring water through again and again and again. So that leaches out, it takes out the tannic acid. Then the next step, once they've put the water through, is they're going to make a fire. And they're going to put hot rocks around the fire. So now I have a question. If I were to take my basket and put it on the fire, what's going to happen to the basket? It's going to burn. It's going to go and be gone. Do you know how smart the Native Americans are? What they do is they can pick up something like, any guesses as to what this is?
Deer.
It's an antler from a
Deer.
Exactly. Do you know that deer antlers fall off every year? So it doesn't hurt. We didn't take this off a deer. It came off, and I found this actually on the ground when I was hiking in somebody's land, and they gave me permission to keep it at somebody that I know. So they would take that hot rock off the fire, and they would lift it up using the antler, and they would put it in the basket with the ground acorns and some water, and that hot rock would cook it, kind of like did you maybe have oatmeal for breakfast this morning? That's how it would cook. And they would be able to also use, do you see over here, they would take branches that had been bent and twisted and made into a ladle or a scoop or a spoon to stir it. Here you can see it again. And then sometimes they would just eat the acorn mush by itself, but sometimes if they had some berries, they would maybe add that to it, and sometimes if they had some deer meat, they could eat that. So here's the family enjoying their meal. So let me ask you, if you're Native American, what did you have for breakfast? Acorn mush. How about for lunch? You had?
Acorn mush.
And dinner you had?
Maybe some deer with that.
Acorn mush. So is it easier to pick up acorns from the ground or to chase a deer? What do you think?
Acorns.
They're not moving. So I've heard that you can have enough acorns from one tree to feed a family of 4 for a whole year. You've got several hundred pounds coming off an oak tree. And the other thing is, if you were going to go on a couple of days trip, maybe for a hunt or maybe to go visit other communities, you could take the acorn mush and put it on a hot rock and bake it kind of like pancakes and take them along with you. All right, so who's ready to go to the next station?